Session 438, Chapter 3, Verse 110.
كنتم خير أمة أخرجت للناس تأمرون بالمعروف وتنهون عن المنكر وتؤمنون بالله ولو آمن أهل الكتاب لكان خيرا لهم منهم المؤمنون وأكثرهم الفاسقون.
You are the best community singled out for people. You order what is right, forbid what is wrong, and believe in God. If the people of the book had also believed, it would have been better for them. Although some of them do believe, most of them are transgressors. Chapter 3, verse 110. This verse explains the requirements of being the best community. You have to promote what is right and advise against wrong, all while having faith in God. If any of these three elements is missing, the label of being the best no longer applies. The moment you hear the words right and wrong, you know that Allah is addressing your human nature. Right, translated from the Arabic maruf, is what people across times and cultures take pride in, while wrong, munkar, is what people are ashamed of and like to do in secret. Even criminals and sinners know right from wrong. Take the example of an employee who is stealing company funds. When he attends a social gathering and a story about theft comes on TV, he will loudly denounce the thieves even though he is one. Right and wrong are known by the natural disposition that guides all people. Now we come to faith. You can be good, generous, and even run charitable organizations to help the needy. However, if God is not in your heart when you do such deeds, do not expect a reward from Him. Faith is a prerequisite to receiving any prize from Allah. If you do good for humanity, prestige, or reputation, then expect your reward from society, not God. This concept also applies to Muslims. Listen to the words of the Prophet Muhammad. He, peace be upon him, said, "Verily amongst the first people to be judged on the day of resurrection will be a man who was martyred. He will be brought forward and shown the blessings God gave him on earth, and he will acknowledge them. God will ask, 'What did you do with my blessings?' The man will answer, 'I sacrificed all in your cause until I was martyred.' God will say, 'You have lied, for you only fought so people would say, he is a brave man.' And so it was said. Then God will order him to be dragged upon his face until he is cast into hellfire. Another man will be brought forward. He was a scholar who studied, taught others, and recited the Quran. He will be shown the blessings God gave him on earth, and he will acknowledge them. God will ask, 'What did you do with my blessings?' The man will answer, 'I learned religious knowledge, taught others, and I recited the Quran for your sake.' God will answer, 'You have lied, for you only studied so people would say, what a great scholar.' And so it was said. Then God will order him to be dragged upon his face until he is cast into hellfire. Another immensely wealthy man will be brought forward. He will be shown his wealth, and he will recognize it. God will ask, 'And what did you do with your wealth?' The man will answer, 'I sought every path in which you like money to be spent and gave for your sake.' God will say, 'You have lied. You spent so people would say, what a generous person, and so it was said.' Then God will order him to be dragged upon his face until he is cast into hellfire. So if you want a reward from Allah, make sure you work for Him. He says, 'And who speaks better than the person who calls to God and does right and says, I am one of the Muslims.' Chapter 41, verse 33. A true believer does good deeds and declares that he does so because he is a Muslim. We do not do good because we are communists, capitalists, humanitarians, or philanthropists. We do good for the sake of our Lord. Some may argue, many faithless people have done wonders for humanity. Don't they deserve a reward from God? We answer that disbelief spoils all deeds. How can you deny your Creator, the one who gave you life, sustenance, strength, and the wealth that allowed you to be generous? Moreover, such people are paid their reward on earth. They have university halls named after them and are praised in newspapers and social gatherings. They denied God, and so He denies them. Isn't that fair? But what makes seemingly good people deny God? It is their false prejudice. When Islam came, the Jews, Christians, and pagans thought it would rob them of their status and worldly authority. In other words, they wanted recognition exclusively for themselves, so they sold paradise for small worldly gains. But they were wrong. God says, if the people of the book had also believed, it would have been better for them. Allah assures them that had they believed, they would have kept their status and power in light of faith. In Islam, there is no loss. You will receive your reward twice, once in this world and again in the hereafter. Or in another interpretation, once for their belief in Moses and Jesus, and another reward for following Prophet Muhammad. In fact, in the same verse, Allah recognized those who followed the message in Islam. He says, although some of them do believe, most of them are transgressors. Interestingly, God used the description transgressors rather than disbelievers. As you know, disbelief is the opposite of belief. It would have made more sense to use disbelief in the text, right? We answer, when the Almighty speaks, He expresses the meaning very precisely. Let's clarify. A disbeliever is a person who has no faith in the matter. On the other hand, a transgressor knows the truth yet decides to overstep it. The people of the book had read the Torah and the Gospel, saw the evident signs, and understood the glad tidings of Muhammad. Yet they chose to deny him when he came. Thus they transgressed over the truth and earned the description, although some of them do believe, most of them are transgressors.
The Prophet, peace be upon him, said, "Convey my teachings to the people, even if it is only a single verse." Please take a moment to subscribe and to share with your family and friends. Visit us at www.qurangarden.com.